Hey guys, so this is going to be the first video of a series on what you should do to your Ppump truck when you first get it. So let's say Ppump engine, I guess, more than truck. So whatever the engine's in, whether it be in a, whatever, it doesn't matter. So when I'm saying Ppump, let's say we're talking Dodge Cummins application. So it'll be either a 160, 175, 215 horse, or 180 or 215 horse engines. Now, basically all the same for all the stuff that we're talking about. There'll be a few differences, and maybe I'll go over that when we do that. But so let's start. Well, we're going to start with, I guess, stuff that we're talking. So you first get your truck. Everybody wants to do modifications to it, or okay, I always want to do modifications to it. I guess maybe not everybody, but most guys, they first start driving them around and they're not the, I guess maybe don't live up to the hype. If they're in stock form, they don't live up to the hype of what these trucks have capability or potential to do. So right out of the gate, in my eyes, the very first things you should be doing is you want to go through this thing, change all the fluids, you know, if there's any leaks or any of that type of stuff, get that stuff fixed up. Do a boost leak check on it. I guess I'll have to do a video on maybe doing boost leak check and how we do it and what we use for doing it. I will actually do that. And then make sure everything's kosher before you really start monkeying around with stuff, I guess. Make sure you don't have any other issues. Something else that I would do before you start doing too much is do a killer dowel bin fix. And I do have, I've talked about it in a couple of my videos. I guess maybe I should do there again a single video for that as well. Just to, you know, just for guys that are less looking for that, I guess. But what you have to pull your harmonic balancer and your fan hub off and your front timing cover off. And it's inside there. It's super easy to do. A little bit time consuming, I guess, depending if you classify that as time consuming. But something that really does need to be, at the very least, if it's been done, and lots of them have been done, but we do get lots of them in here that still haven't been done. I would say probably 50% of the ones that come in haven't been done. So especially if the front seal is leaking, you definitely want to be doing that. And then all the bolts that hold the front cover on, and make sure torque and Loctite, all that stuff. But anyways, like I said, I will do a video on just dedicated that. But you want to do a killer dowel pin fix. Now, at that point, I would recommend doing gauges. At least a pyro gauge and a boost gauge. So you can see what the engine's doing before you really get into turning it up, because it's a real easy way. You start turning them up, especially if you're towing, real easy to kill a motor. And that sucks when you're killing a motor, especially if you just got the truck. You know, that sucks. So I would recommend doing that stuff first, for sure. Now, I know a lot of you guys aren't going to want to do that stuff first. Hey, and that's fine, it's your truck, do whatever you want. But that's what I would do. Now, get into the fun stuff. So this is a fresh built Ppump we have sitting here. This one's a 175 horse. I usually do have some sitting on the shelf ready to go. Most of them are pretty mild pumps, because to build a performance pump to have sitting on the shelf, everybody wants something different, so it's pretty hard. So this is literally a stock. It has been maxed and balanced, but it is a stock pump. Other than that, it still has a stock fuel plate in it, or at least it should. Stock fuel plate, stock govern spring, stock. And that's the way that I usually get them built. For you know, something to sit on the shelf, because then it caters to everybody. I personally wouldn't put this in one of my vehicles like that, but some guys are just want after stock, so that's the reason I stock them that way. Now, when you're getting into it, the very first thing that I would do, there again, knowing what I know and what we do, the very least, so this is a set of RPM springs. What I would do, this is a 4K kit. Now the difference between a 4K kit, let me just open these up. So the difference between a 4K kit and a 3K kit. Now, whenever you're buying these, I would always buy a 4K kit, even if you're not going to use it to start with. So this is a 4K kit. The 2 bigger springs, and these, and then it depends on the kit that you're buying. This one's a pack break kit. Depending on the kit, some of them have this, some of them don't. Just depends on the springs. Now these babies are the 4K part of it. So if you leave these out, you'll have a 3K kit. Put these in, you have a 4K kit. So I recommend, if you're not running aftermarket valve springs and you drive the truck hard, I would make it just a 3000K kit. Now, when we're doing it here, when we do them, I always do a set of at least 60-pound valve springs. There again, you can buy this stuff from Pack Break. I will be getting a website up in the next, hopefully the next 6 months. So for some of you guys that are looking for this stuff, you'll actually be able to go right on our website. And at the very least, even if you guys aren't buying it from us, and that's honestly not the reason that I'm doing it. I'm building the website so that I can sell stuff. I shouldn't say that. But for the guys that are down in the States and all that stuff, if you don't want to buy it from us, we're in Canada. It gives you, I'm going to post the part numbers and stuff of things. So at the very least, you can see the parts that I'm using and the part numbers. So then you can reference the part number, buy it from your local guy. And eventually I will set up maybe some stuff with some guys down in the States so that I'll have some, I guess, local guys that you can buy stuff from. Like, I guess, a representative, I guess you would say, kind of idea, just to help you out. And then if you get in contact with the right guys, I guess that's the main thing. So if you're doing RPM springs, I would do valve springs, and this helps in more than one thing, but I would definitely, in my mind, it does help enough to warrant doing it. And you can buy a tool for doing this with when it's on the truck. There again, Torque Technology sells one that you can do them while it's on the truck. It's really not that hard to do. There again, I guess I should do a video on doing it while the engine's together. Maybe that would be a good idea too. Note to self. But I will definitely, this is kind of going to turn into a bunch of videos now that I'm doing all the talking about it. Something else you want to do is check your lift pump pressure. Now, I do have a video on doing overflow valves. This is a brand new one because we sell these with, if you buy a brand new pump, we sell a brand new one with it because they do wear out, but they're not that bad for doing it. But it's just we offer it when we sell you a pump. Also, too, when we sell the pumps, which is handy, is they come with a new nut and a new washer on them. For some reason, a lot of places don't do that, and I don't understand why, but I would prefer to replace them myself. So overflow valve, you can check out the video for the overflow valve. If you want to modify your overflow valve, which I would recommend if you want to make more power. And then also, so if you check your fuel pump pressure or lift pump pressure and you're low, first thing, if you haven't changed the fuel filter in a while, change the fuel filter. If that doesn't fix anything, you should pull your fuel heater apart and make sure the fuel heater isn't plugged up. There again, guess I'll show a video on doing that too. So that, and personally, I do away with the fuel heaters, but you don't have to. You can leave it there. You're in real cold climate. They do make a difference. They, help trucks start a little easier when it's really cold out. But I don't have a problem, and we're in the Great White North. So now I did there again showed a video on upgrading your lift pump, whether you're putting a new lift pump in or if you are just going to modify the one that's in there. There's a good video on that. But if you have low lift pump pressure and you check all that other stuff out, new lift pump, great way to set up your new lift pump if you want to stay with a mechanical lift pump. So that's kind of the basic type of thing. Honestly, I would do, if it doesn't have a 4-inch exhaust on it, I would do a turbo back 4-inch exhaust. After you've done that stuff, I would do a turbo back 4-inch exhaust. Now, most of the trucks out there probably are going to have that, but I would do that for sure. And then upgrade your air filter to something better. It's there again, one of those things. There's all kinds of different ones. For the most part, I would say which might get some hate for this, but I usually just put a bath in it, which is a big honking air filter. I don't know. I'll find some part numbers and put them in the description for those. It's quite a large filter. Put some part numbers down in there if you guys want to check them out. It's actually an equipment air filter that you can put onto your stock intake, your stock air box hose, and then you just take your stock air box and set it in there. Not the greatest thing as far as efficiency, I guess you would say, because you're pulling in hot air from your engine compartment. So if you get something that is actually a cold air intake, as they call them, if you can set something like that up, honestly, that's probably better than doing the big honking air filter. But maybe I'm just old school like that. Like, honestly, the cold air is better. So get the cold air in there. So I guess moral of the story, maybe buy a cold air intake. If you're going to stay stock-ish, you're going to stay with a single smallish turbo, do that. Because air in, air out, right? Same with, like this stuff, air in, air out. But the biggest change to the truck will be govern springs and a set of valve springs. For the money, by far is going to be your best modification. By far. That's what I always recommend. If you're going to do, after you do all that other stuff and you know what's going on, that would be the very first thing I do. I wouldn't add any more fuel. Make sure all your everything is the way it's supposed to be and it's working properly, and then do that. Now, the next thing on this one, in this video, we're going to just going to show you a couple little things here, and then we'll have it for the next. Be on to the part 2 for the next one. But I'll get this one finished up today here. So you can see that these are slotted. So that allows this to slide. It doesn't move that far when you have the bolts in it, but it gives you an idea. So if you want to add more fuel to it, if you mark where this is, you can actually leave this where it is if you want. But if you want to add more fuel, not a lot of fuel, because if everything's still stock, you don't want to add too much fuel. So there's your fuel plate. Let's just quickly pull this out of there. Oh. You want to watch when you're taking the fuel plate out, especially when it's in the truck, that you don't drop that as I just drop it. You don't want to drop that washer or the bolt inside the pump, because otherwise, not a good time, because you don't want to if you run the pump with that in there, there's a very, 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 very good chance you'll wreck the pump. So there's a fuel plate, and it's just a stock fuel plate that was in there. So what you want to do is, usually it'll be right about in the middle or so. You want to slide it all the way forwards in the holes. And then, you don't even have to take, I want to just show you with the fuel plate. You don't have to take these bolts right out to move it like that. But you slide the fuel plate all the way forwards, which I'm saying forwards to the front of the engine. A lot of people get that mixed up for some reason when you say forwards. They don't know. I guess it depends on which way if you're standing there, forwards is different than forwards to the front of the engine. But let's say forwards front of the engine. Now this you can play with pretty easy, because you can loosen it. You just have to take, when this is all on there, your shut-off solenoid is going to be bolted here, and then bolts in back here too. But you just loosen these bolts off, and you can actually slide this back and forth without taking anything off. So you can add a little bit more fuel to it. Faster fuel, I shouldn't say more fuel, faster fuel. So, if you want it to come out of the hole harder, but it's not going to add more fuel. You have to move the fuel plate if you have a fuel plate in there to do that. Usually I tell guys, you can move this a little bit if you want forwards. Otherwise it will become a little smokier for sure. especially in a stock application. Now, the next step after this, you're going to be talking, for me anyway, if everything checks out at that point, you're talking, for me, you would be adding timing. So on one of these engines, you know, if you're all stock with govern springs and that stuff, I would want to be timing it to at least 17 degrees. You can go a little greedier than that if you want, which, you know, you could go to 18 degrees, 19 degrees, but you're not going to gain a lot in stock fashion. You start to lose a little bit of drivability at that point. So that's why I usually tell guys 17 degrees to do that. So there's, you know, I myself use a mechanical kit for doing it with a dial indicator. Power driven diesel has one that goes on the harmonic bouncer, and you can do it that way. I'm personally not a huge fan of doing it that way, but however you want to do it, it is cheaper to buy just that, and then you do it that way. I just don't like it 100% because you don't know. Actually, with this pump is actually a good one. So somebody had left the timing pin in here, and I guess I can pull it out and show you. Somebody had left that in there, and that was actually the reason that this pump was rebuilt. Somebody had left this in there. Somebody had left this in there, and it broke this off. Okay? And when that got broke off, it bent the arm that you time it with. Like there's a little arm inside here that slides into when the pump is timed. And it bent it. And it bent it 8.5 degrees. So if you time this pump stock with that and you put the pin in there, you were 8.5 degrees below timing. Truck wouldn't run. And that was actually the reason that this pump was rebuilt. The guy actually, like, I sold him a pump off the shelf, and he said to me, the truck won't run. So something wrong with the pump, it won't run. And that was the problem. Like, it got completely rebuilt, but that was, you know, like, they went through it and cleaned everything, and they changed some govern stuff that had some wear in it, but that, you know, nature of the beast. But that shows you right there. If you were to do the timing though with the power driven diesel kit, which works for 99% of them, don't get me wrong, and it is a cheap way to do it, but you would do it with this and you still wouldn't be, okay, the truck would run, but you would think that you had a bunch of timing, let's say, and you don't. So you'd be like, oh, this thing still doesn't work right, or this or that. You know, if you were at 4 degrees timing and you added 6 degrees to it, you're still at 10. Yeah, the truck will run, but it won't have any power. So that's the reason that I personally like doing it with the plunger style. But to each his own on that. And, you know, like, if you're not planning on doing it all the time, you know, the other way does work. If the truck's running, you know, and the truck works okay the way it is, yeah, you probably get away with doing it. Don't get me wrong. So anyways, I think I'm going to wrap it up on this one. That was just like a short little part 1 to it. And like I said, I'm going to do a bunch of other videos on some other stuff. Show you how to install 12 valve valve springs in truck. I'll probably just do it on an engine on a stand, just so that it's easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. Install govern springs on a Ppump. And then maybe I'll do a fuel test, pressure test video as well, so you guys can see that. And then a killer dowel pin fix. I'll probably just do it all on the same engine, and then I can do it in a pretty quick manner, so that kind of all these videos kind of can go together. But that would be, like I said, that's the basic, what I would classify as basic. Varies to start with upgrades, and it makes a huge difference in the way the truck drives. You know, and you can do all this stuff. If you're doing the work yourself, I would say you're probably, now, doing it, if you're in the US, it's going to be cheaper than here because Canadian dollar isn't very good. But let's say if you had to do RPM springs or governed springs, whatever you want to call them, valve springs, a brand new pressure valve, and you were to do a stock one and then do an upgrade to it, or you can buy a Torque Technologies adjustable one, a new lift pump, the killer dowel pin fix, an exhaust, an air intake. I'm just going to use the big honking air filter just for that, a fuel filter, and the killer dowel pin. Maybe I already said that already, but the kit for doing that, which is just a front seal and a fender washer. But I would say you'd be talking, if you were to do all of it at once, you'd be talking maybe $1,000 to do all of it. So not an astronomical amount of money, and you can split that up, obviously. Actually, if you're doing gauges, you're going to be a little bit more money because the boost gauge isn't expensive, but the pyro is really expensive. So let's say, worst case scenario, even Canadian dollars, probably $1,500 in parts. But price the stuff out, and like I said, I will be bringing up a website at the very least. Even if you guys are just using it for part numbers, you know, if you want to buy stuff from me, that's awesome. If you don't, hey, that's awesome too. I'm not doing the videos for that part of it. I'm doing it to help you guys out with, you know, information, so that so much misinformation, it's ridiculous. So I just want to make sure we're getting good information out there. And hey, don't get me wrong, I don't know everything. If I did, I would already I'd already probably be retired, but we're not quite there yet. All right guys, well, I'm gonna cut this one off now, and we'll catch you on the next one.